My name is Christina Carell, and I'm with Michigan State University Extension, along with Ann Nardi from University of Wisconsin Extension, and Leslie Johnson from Nebraska Extension. We want to welcome you to this month's Digital Cafe. See if we can get it to work. Okay, who we are. We are, if you don't know about the Soul Health Nexus, we are a university-led multi-state grant group that meet to discuss soil health and ways that we can teach soil health better. We are mainly in the land grant universities, but we do have members that are in some of our sister agencies and growers alike. So while I'm going through this, Anne, if you want to go ahead and put up the poll that we have, for those of you who are used to extension and extension work, we are a land grant. We are required to get some demographic poll information just to ensure that we reach everybody that we can. So if you have a couple minutes, this is just a 7-question poll. If you want to go ahead and answer those for us, we would appreciate it. So let me tell you a little bit about what's going to happen today. We have a speaker, and I'll introduce him in a minute, and he's going to give us a really nice presentation. And then during the presentation, he is okay if you have any questions to either put in the chat box and we'll bring them up, or feel free to open up your mic if you have a question and you can answer it yourself. And you can do it anytime during his presentation. When he's done, if there is still time allowed, or if we still have time, we'll have breakout rooms, and we have 5 breakout rooms. The rooms are designed to have open discussions about what you've heard today and any ideas that you think that would benefit everyone else in the room. Our breakout rooms are designed for researchers, educators, agency staff, farmers, and students. So with that, let me introduce our speaker. Our speaker is Dr. Lee Briese, and he works for the Central Inc. I'm going to let him explain it. He's probably going to do better than I am and explain it, but he's a crop consultant, and he is going to talk to us on how to help growers start. And that's a really intriguing. So I'm going to stop sharing and let Lee take over. So with that, Lee, if you'd like to share your screen, and you have the floor.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks for the invitation, folks. Really appreciate it. Yeah. So who is this guy? So yeah, my name is Lee Briese. I'm from North Dakota, and I'm a crop consultant. I work directly with farmers here. So I just snuck in from the field. We were checking for soybean aphids here just this morning, and after we get done with this, I'm going to go back and do some more of that. We have that pest rearing its ugly head here at the end of our season. This is about where I'm at in about a 50-mile radius around this star in the middle of North Dakota there. I work on approximately 80,000 acres a year, and we're checking those every 7 days to see how the crop is doing. And about 36 different farms and a total of around 100 growers. Been doing that for 26 years, and really, really enjoy that. So in that time frame, I've covered about 1.5, 1.6 million acres, and that is both on foot and with an ATV, and that is extensively several times a year. So I have some of those experiences. Get the privilege to work with several progressive growers, guys that are doing a lot of soil health stuff, a lot of cool things. You may see this from me, and if you want a sticker like this, just email me because I'll send you one. But this is something that I really, really believe in, is that the details matter. I think that's super important. I think that's one of the things that gets missed in a lot of soil health messaging, especially when we come at that high level at 35,000-foot view. We tend to miss those details, and they make a big difference on individual farms and their success. So I want to just kind of frame this a little bit, and like Christina was saying, that questions, comments, arguments, welcome at any time. That's fine. Just because I think of something doesn't mean that it's correct or right or works for you. So that detail matters, so that where you're at and what you're doing. But one of the things I want you to think about is, which farmers are you talking about? And who are you talking to, and what are you trying to do with them? And I really want to encourage you to work with the willing and not the reluctant, especially when we're talking with soil health. There's a lot of reasons to not do it or to do the same thing. And it's much easier to work with those who are interested, who are willing, who are working for it, and then to move from there. We still have to realize that soil health in general, as a type of practical agriculture is on the small scale side. It's a minority, and so we're better off working with the willing and making those people up to help them get into that level. And then it's important to understand what unique challenges each individual farmer has. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. One of the things I do want to say is that I think the job of someone who's trying to help another person get into this is really to help reduce their risk. I firmly believe that those who are tolerant of high risk are already doing it. They're already out there. They're already doing it. They're the ones that we are highlighting. They're the ones that we're talking to. They're the ones we're going and touring their farms, seeing what they're doing, how they're doing it. They're not afraid to try things and have high risk and move forward. So I just think that's just understand that those farmers who are able to tolerate high risk, they're doing it. They don't need our help. It's the next level group, those who are less tolerant of high risk, those who are more averse to that, who are a little nervous about it, who maybe have a financial situation or a logistic situation that prevents them from taking big risks. Those are the ones that we're looking at, and really we need to lower that risk for them so that they have a just to make it easier for them to get in. So I like to try to do that. So, for instance, crops that are doing really well, producing really well, that's not where I'm targeting their changes on their farm because there's a high chance of causing a problem with it. The way I say this is it's like you have two children, right? And they're both in school. The one is a straight A student. The other one is a D or C student. Yeah, and you should not get a tutor for both. You should not get a tutor for both. You don't want to get a tutor for your A student simply because you're more likely to cause problems for your A student than you are to help them. The potential for them to increase is very low. Maybe they can increase a percent or two, but they're still getting A's, right? Getting the tutor for that D or C student is where you have opportunity. That's where the opportunity for them to improve, to try new things, to do different things. So their risk is lower, it's less likely that they're going to have loss of grade or grade point averages. So I want you to think about that in a way. So the good producing acres, the ones that are making the money on the farm, those are the A students. Don't do go changing it. What they're doing seems to be working. And in the future, when the person is highly skilled, then you can change it after that. Another thing I'll say is that we tend to have several people in the soil health community, in your locality, in the nation, in your state that are like, wow, that person's doing it all and they're doing a great job. And really wish we had every farmer doing what Joe is doing, right? Now, what I'm going to say is that, again, those are the people who have a very high tolerance for risk and they're already doing it. And just because they're doing it, they doesn't mean they're good at teaching it. And I've run into this several times where they're doing amazing things, and you want to go to their farm and see how they're doing it, and then you ask them how they got to where they were, or how they thought of this idea, or what they would tell someone to do next. And a lot of times you'll just hear, "Well, just go do it. Just jump in, just do it. You have to. The longer you wait, the longer it's going to take you to get there. You just have to hurry up and do it." That is not a teaching situation. That is not a step by step process for someone to take that advice. That is definitely not good advice for someone who is more risk averse, right? So I think I've seen this several times where growers that are interested but have a higher risk aversion. I've been to those meetings and they leave there going, "Wow, there's no way I can take that risk. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do it all." And so I've actually seen them discouraged from those situations. So I think that I don't have a problem with elevating growers who are doing great practices and things that we want people to do. But I'm just saying at times they may not be the right person to teach or learn from. It goes back to the same thing as like maybe we all kind of know that person who just musically inclined can pick up an instrument and just play it within a few minutes. They probably can't teach you how to do it because it's just innate for them. It's just something they do all the time. So I would rather have the person who struggled with it the way that I struggle with things in order to help me through. Well, I struggle the same way, and here's what I did to try to move forward. Now, when we're in this situation, going back to the A student versus C student thing, um, I call this the nephew acre. Yeah, and I hope you steal this term. I hope you use this 100 times, as it seems to really resonate with farmers and most people in general. And the nephew that I'm talking about is the nephew when your sister calls and says, "Listen, this son of ours is going to be in juvenile hall very soon, unless you take him to the farm and show him how to work and how to be a man and how to learn his stuff and how to be a good, productive citizen." Right? So you reluctantly agree and bring him to the farm. And the first thing you do is put him in the planter or the really expensive piece of equipment? Absolutely not. That is absolutely not where you put this person. And I always ask the farmers, I say, what is a good job for that nephew? And you get anything from picking rocks and stones to, driving the lawnmower to a shovel operator to those types of things. And that's exactly it, right? This is the idea. This nephew needs to gain his skills a lot before we ever put him in a big tractor. And this tractor here was a nephew acre kind of kid. He was crossing railroad tracks and did not see the train coming. Luckily, nobody got hurt, but yeah, that'll wreck your day. And this is an example of a nephew acre. This is one of the acres that I work on. And you can see where he planted the corn through here, right all the way through all of this. And there's just no corn in the middle of that picture. Well, very little. It looks kind of like a smiley face there in the middle of that picture. Um, but this is just not the right thing. This acre should be fired from corn production. And I will tell you that to fire your acre sometimes. It is not good corn growing acre. It never has been. It never will be. It is planted out of convenience in this area because it's just easier to drive through that and leave the corn planter down. But if you do this several times, you start to add up the math, and at roughly $400 or $500 an acre to put corn in the ground and your return is zero or negative, then it doesn't take very long to know that you need to fire this acre and give it a different job, do something very different with it. And this is what this grower has done with the same acres, the same type of thing. He's actually fired those acres from corn production. And along this border here, we've planted barley. Um, it's because barley fits this nephew acre really well. The nephew acre that I'm talking about here is a saline spot with high salts and lots of water. Barley is probably our most saline tolerant crop. Corn is one of the least saline tolerant crops. So we plant this barley in here, but we definitely treat it. We don't give it all it needs. There's plenty of fertility here. Um, we don't put any extra fertilizer in here. We're doing some creative things because within barley and corn, there are several herbicides that work on both that can help manage these weeds. You'll see there are not a whole lot of weeds along that border. And then we're getting what we can out of this acre. The restriction is the salts in the soil, and so the production is not going to be high, but it's better than zero. And we didn't invest at $400 or $500 or $600 into this acre. We invested 50, 60, $70 in this acre. So the net return for it to get back to zero is pretty easy. Okay, so that's the idea here. And in North Dakota, my growers love for their fields to be square, but we don't have to be square just because it's a flat state. I'm assuming that in Michigan, I spent a lot of time there, that most of your fields are not square, but in North Dakota, they're a mile long by half a mile wide, and they go from end to end, and they love that kind of stuff because it's super efficient. However, this whole region in the top of this picture is a nephew acre. Those are all nephew acres. And if we plant corn into those, it drags the whole average of the field way down. And we get a lot of zeros, and there's no point in planting that. Even when we planted the barley, you can see over here on the right side where some of those tracks are heavy, where you combined it, there still wasn't any barley growing. It was simply just way too much salinity there. Now, we can manage some of these salines with some drawouts, but I think you can see from the picture that I'm in what's called a prairie pothole region. And so we have all of these depressions that are connected or not connected underground and several of these water zones, and we don't have a whole lot of relief. So the drainage can be an issue. So there's not really a fix for this. It's better to manage this acre differently. All right. So another thing that I've experienced with farmers, now that we've identified their nephew acre, and to be honest with you, everybody's got a nephew. They all do. Everybody's got that nephew. You can think of him in your head. You have that nephew, that one that's like, yeah, I don't know if I'd let him run my brand new car or my equipment or anything like that. Yeah, and it comes down to this idea that you can't disown them because they are family. And the same thing with this nephew acre. It's in the field. You own the field. You rent that field. You have to deal with it. Give it the right job. Okay, so now we've identified that. And I've been able to get every farmer I've ever talked to admit that, yes, they indeed have a nephew acre. Okay, so then it comes down to, well, I can't do that because XYZ doesn't work here. One of my favorite examples is cover crops. I've talked in 11 states and 5 Canadian provinces, and every meeting I go to, when we talk about cover crops, is that I hear the same thing. Well, that probably works south of here, but here in north, we just don't have enough time. And I literally tell you, folks, I've heard that all the way to central Saskatchewan, and I don't think anybody's further north than that. And the guy that I talked with and who was there and who invited me was doing cover crops. It can be done, right? So, but there are reasons why some guy can't do something. So if this is your current drill equipment that you have on the farm and that's all you have, that's a reason to not be able to do cover crops, right? This is, by the way, is my little plot planter. But if you have old equipment or you have equipment that's not set up to do this, like this plot planter is not set up to do no-till, we've made it work, kind of, but it's just not right. And if I was going to do more plot work and make it a part of my business, which I don't, and I won't be able to because I'd have to invest several $100,000 to get good plot planter equipment, right? So that's a reason why I'm not doing a lot of plots. An excuse is simply I don't have time, I don't want to, and a lot of the excuses come back to I don't want to or I'm not ready yet. And so it's just the whole south of here it'll work, but north of here it won't. My soils are too heavy. I hear that a lot. They got too much clay in my soils. I need the tillage for XYZ, whatever. And when we get down to it, and you talk about what is the tillage actually doing for you? What is it doing? Is it removing water? Is it warming up the soils? Is it, there are different ways to get to those end results. And so a lot of times I will burn through people's excuses by just pelting them with questions. And I'll get to the point where they'll finally just have to admit, well, I don't want to do it or I'm not ready yet. And to me, that's an perfectly acceptable reason, but they're throwing excuses in the way. So then this goes back to, is this person really willing to move forward yet or not? And I will have discussions with people who are or are not ready to will move forward. That's fine. Like your payoff maybe years down the road, and that's I absolutely have no problem with that. Um, but I want to spend my time with those who are ready to move and try and do things now. So I will talk with all, but then when it gets to be like if you got reasons and your reason is I don't want to yet, well then let's talk in the future. Think about it. Drive through that nephew acre and tell me, do you really want to spend that kind of money? Okay. The other thing I will say, this is a human condition, right? This is nothing new. We all struggle with criticism. My ego is huge. It's almost as big as I am in physical shape and form, and I'm a pretty big guy. And I don't care for criticism. That doesn't mean I can't take it, but it done well, it works, and at the right level. Okay. So this is the other thing I've learned in my career. And I've worked with these farmers for many generations. I'm very proud to say that the vast majority of farms I work with, I'm on second generation. Several of them I'm on third generation. If I hang in there another 10 years, I'll probably get to the fourth generation where I'm their crop consultant. And I'm really, really proud of that fact because it takes a long time to build that kind of trust. With that, I'm still cautious about the criticisms I make. And keep in mind, it's my job to point out where they've made mistakes. And this picture is a classic picture of a significant mistake. This grower drove the heavy equipment on every square inch of this little piece here. Okay. And this is significant compaction. This is an issue. This is a problem. I have to talk to him about it. We have to manage this. You can't do this again because you're causing significant soil destruction that we really can't fix very well. But when and how it's done, and how it's said and how hard you push depend on the day and the timing. And this gets back to kind of knowing that person and also having had time to build trust with them. I think you really have to have some level of trust, or you're really not going to listen to anybody. And it comes down to all of these types of ideas, like who do you trust to give you advice on a car purchase or anything like that. So keep in mind, be careful with your criticism. We do have to point some things out, um, but yet do it in a gentle way is what I'm going to say. This goes back. This is my example of pointing out criticisms. So the Library of Congress picture. This is the only picture in the slide deck that is not my personal picture. From the 1930s. I think we've all heard the horror stories of it from approximately 100 years ago. How bad our soil erosion was, and how much is lost, and how that soil has changed. And oh, wait a minute, this picture is not in black and white. This is actually a color photo, and this color photo is 10 years ago. And I could literally post photos from this year and do the very same thing and show you inches of topsoil loss to wind erosion in my home state on fields that I help manage. And I am a soil health expert, and that's one of the things that I really push for. So it continues to happen. And this is something that where I want to talk to people and make sure that they're aware of it. But at the same time, these farmers that had soil wind erosion this year, um, they were distraught about it. They were really they recognize that this is a terrible thing. They know that it's not good for their soil. They know that it's hurting their soils, and being gentle with it and how we talk about what we can do. I tend to start and frame that conversation with, all right, for next year, let's try to keep more residue on the field. Let's try to do this. Let's try to reduce the tillage. Let's try some of these things because we know we can't continue with this type of loss. It's a very common thing in North Dakota to have 30 plus mile an hour winds. And to see this, that intersection's only, I'm actually at the stop sign, so that's only a few hundred feet away where you literally can't see across the road. And so wind erosion is one of my number one things that I deal with in North Dakota. So that's a quote unquote nephew acre thing for me. So I have to talk about, guys. It's going to blow every year, all the time. This year we had 48 hours of 30 to 50 mile an hour winds continuously. And we ended up replanting a lot of soybeans because it was sandblasted off and killed. All right. So what the heck is the picture of yo-yos doing in the middle of this guy's talk? Like, where is this going? Okay, so we've talked about all kinds of things, everything from their excuses to their to finding out who they are, to the nephew acre, to all these little tips and tricks, right? And I mentioned it earlier about the musician, the person who can just pick up an instrument and play it, right? Well, the vast majority of us cannot do that. And in life, productions, you see me in person, I will have a yo-yo. I'll have all of these yo-yos. I will pull them out and I will do tricks for you live on stage. I'm an agronomist. I am not a professional yo-yo player, and I will screw up the trick. It will happen. It's part of the deal. It's part of the gig. It's part of the plan is to make a mistake and to have people laugh. One of the famous ones actually happened in Wisconsin. The yo-yo got tied up into my beard in front of about 150 people. Everybody laughs and thinks it's great. And I said, well, it's a good thing I'm not a professional yo-yo player. I'm just practicing this. But that's the point, right? So here's the thing. Everybody that I know can do a yo-yo. And you can sit there at your desk go, no, I can't. Yes, I could teach you a yo-yo trick, 100% guaranteed. Never failed on that yet. Now, I'm not saying it's a great trick. I'm not saying it's something you're going to want to show to everybody, but I can teach you a yo-yo trick. It's a very simple thing. It's an axle with a string. You can do it. You can learn it if you put the time and effort into it. But that's the thing. And the same thing is true of soil health. You can go to meetings, you can listen to the gurus, you can listen to the big blowhards on the stage, you can watch hundreds of YouTube videos, you can join every single Zoom soil health meeting there is. But in order to do soil health, you actually have to go out and practice it. You actually have to do it yourself, you have to learn it. And on stage, I'm left-handed, so I'm doing my yo-yo tricks left-handed. One of the first things I'll ask, do you want to do it exactly the way I do it? And often there's another left-hander in the stage and says, yeah, I do because you're left-handed. And most people, their right hand is not the hand they want to try yo-yo tricks with. Okay. So that's the thing, is you actually have to pick it up, put it in your hand, and practice it. And guess what? You're going to make mistakes. It's going to go wrong. But if someone's there to help guide you and to say, listen, this is how you put the string on your finger so that it doesn't fly off. And this is how you throw the yo-yo. And this is how you're going to catch it. And here's how you're going to retrieve it so that when it doesn't work, you can start again. And it's easier. And you just put a little bit of time into this. Because what we're asking most of these farmers to do with soil health practices are not that far outside of their norm, but they are a little bit different. And they are new and they are different things. So they're going to have to practice them. It's one of the important parts. And I think that's the other thing is they have patience with themselves and others, and so that they take the time to practice and learn this. All right. There's the 5 soil health principles. I think you've seen these. I'm just about done. I'm not going to go over them. I'm not going to lecture them because I'm sure you know about them. What I'm going to say is none of these are actions. They're not actions. They're principles. They're ideas. They're yeah. They're not actions. In my experience, farmers are doers. They're action oriented people. They need to have actions. They need to have a list of actions. What can I do to minimize disturbance? What can I do to keep a continuous living rut? How do I keep the soil armored? Those are the things that I want farmers to leave with. And that's why I go with that. So there's a hand raised here. I go ahead, jump in. And I can't see all of the screen, folks. So Christina or Ann, please help.
Yeah, I'm looking too. If there's a hand up, please go ahead and just open up your mic if you want.
Yeah, go for it. All right. Well, I'm going to keep going. Go ahead and type it in the chat if your mic's not working. So what should the farmer do? First of all, ID that problem or challenge. Find your nephew acre, find your C student, find that person. Start there. Set a realistic goal. What is realistic goal? Well, I'm going to turn that C student into an A student in 1 year. No, you're not. You're not going to take that acre that I showed you where we planted barley and turn that into a corn acre. That's just not going to happen. Putting barley in it's a realistic goal. Then you list all your possible solutions. Okay, I don't want to grow barley because I'm a wheat grower, or I don't have a market, or okay, well maybe you can do flax, maybe you can do canola, maybe you can do something else, maybe you can do a wildlife plot, maybe you can do a pollinator plot. Maybe those things just make more sense than planting corn and losing $400 an acre, and it takes 3 acres to pay for that acre that you lost. Then make a plan, evaluate how it worked, and then try again, practice again. So I'm gonna bump ahead here, and I'm gonna just kind of get this to the end
So,
because I think I've kind of hit my time frame.
Lee, you're fine. Jeff has a question. Jeff, do you want to ask your question or do you want to put in the chat box and I can bring it up? I
So I can
guess.
go ahead and I can
Yeah.
stop share now, Christina, because I really said what I
Okay.
intended to say.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Lee. I'm gonna, is there any questions that you want to put in the chat box? Anyone?
I'm not that scary. I know I'm a big bearded guy, but it's just the internet. You're safe. Don't worry.
Yeah, I don't see any questions.
Oh, I failed. That's not good.
No, no, that's great. So I guess Jeff, you gave us a lot of I'm sorry, Lee. I'm looking at Jeff's name and I say I was talking to you.
No worries.
You gave us a lot of some ideas. What do you think though is the most practical when we're meeting with a farmer for the first time? What should we be doing?
Well, if you're meeting for the farmer for the first time, if you don't know him, build trust. Like, and I don't know how you can do that, but honestly, you don't trust anybody, right? So if you're looking for a new refrigerator and you're going to look around, and you're going to go to the store and you're going to see the refrigerator, and the salesperson comes up to you, and they're the person who knows all the things about refrigerators, right? Do you just trust them to sell you the right refrigerator? I don't know anybody that does. And my wife and I recently went through this experience of buying a refrigerator. And it was an interesting experience because in the end of things, it's not that expensive. Like, yeah, $2,000. It's not terribly expensive, but it's a long-term commitment because in the previous house, we never bought a refrigerator. It was there, it came with the house, and it stayed. It's still with the house, and it'll probably be there after long after I'm dead. Most people have refrigerators for 20, 30 years. It's quite normal, right? So this is a long-term commitment. So even though it was an expensive thing, it was a long-term commitment. So we looked for ourselves, we thought about it, made measurements, the whole thing. And then we talked to my brother, who's a plumber. And then I talked to my dad. And then I called my uncle. And then I called the people that I trust. I called my friends, I called my neighbors, I talked to them, and we just spent a lot of time on picking out this refrigerator. But that's the point I'm trying to make here is that you get advice from people you trust. So build
Mhm.
trust. The other thing, if you're meeting with a farmer, is go and see their nephew acres. Go and see their farm. Be with them at the farm as much as you can, and you can point some of those things out. Like I think you really have an opportunity here on this acre to like save some money or do something different, or this is one of those where you're really fighting to try to get a crop. You're doing everything you could possibly do. Like maybe this isn't working, and it's kind of hard to deny that and argue with that, and at the same time just be careful how you push, but you have to build trust. If you don't have trust, I don't think you have much of a conversation.
Thank you. There's a couple questions. Archie's asking about soil armor. That's a new term for him. Can you explain what you mean by soil armor?
Yeah, the soil armor is really the cover, like leaving residue on the soil, not disturbing the surface. Like I said, Archie, I talked about wind erosion being one of the major problems in North Dakota. Yeah, and so if we leave crop residue out there, that really protects the soil from wind erosion and water erosion as well. And so that's really the soil armor term, is just to cover.
Okay, thank you. Michaela's asking, what is your end goal when you when you go to these farms.
Yeah, I think that she's saying that's what she wants the farmer to ask the farmer. And I think that's a good thing, but a lot of these farmers don't. They either have an unrealistic end goal or they may not have thought about it. As I've talked to those guys, and so those acres that I showed you, well, I want that to be a good corn producing acre. Well, that's just not that. I'm 50 years old. I'm 100 pounds overweight. I could say I want to play basketball. That shit's not going to happen. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Mhm.
So let's have a realistic goal. Like, I can lose some weight. I can walk more. I can do things like that. I can eat healthier. That's a realistic goal. So I think that's part of it. So then that's another avoidance strategy. And some of them haven't thought through it. So when you talk to the people who are doing all these things, they've thought through it. They have their end goal. They want to see what their farm looks like. That next level, the ones that are thinking about doing some soil health stuff, may not have envisioned what they want their farm to look like. So that might be a good conversation. What do you want your farm to look like? How do you want it to look in the future? What do you want it to do? So the end goal, I that's a good question. I'm not saying, but just understand people will roadblock you with that question.
Right. The next one is from Eli. He's saying, what is the first thing you ask or tell a producer when they say cover crops won't work in the northern region? I think we
The
all
first
have
thing
that
I
question.
Yeah, I told you, everywhere I go, 11 states and 5 Canadian provinces. It's south of here they work, but north of here they just don't work. I said, well, here's the thing. I said, sometimes you have to. Cover crops are part of a system. They're not an individual thing, right? And the cover crop in that nephew acre may be the best way to do it. Instead of planting $400 an acre corn or $400 acre soybeans and losing 300 of that, and maybe that's a good cover crop acre. So I think they get it into, well, the whole field has to be cover crops or the whole farm has to be cover crops. Or, no, they don't. No, they don't. These are tools that you can use at your whim. Like, it's to me, cover crops are like the 9/16 or the 10 millimeter wrench. You got to have them in your toolbox, but you don't use them for every job. Okay, if I'm fixing my watch, I don't need a 9/16 wrench. It's just not the right tool. I need a micro screwdriver. Okay, but if I'm working on small equipment, I most likely need that. So this is the idea. Like, it's going to be a common thing, but use the right tool in the right place in the right job. And I think that gives you better expectations of how it's going to work. And it goes back to, again, don't put cover crops on a 300 bushel an acre corn or 200 bushel an acre corn or whatever your high yielding corn is, because the chances for it to get less are there. You can screw up the system either with weeds or moisture management or residue or too cold or whatever. Put the cover crops in a D and C acre that's just that nephew acre. Use that. That works. And that's the foot in the door, because those guys all have them. They will admit to it and they will say, well, yeah, I guess. And then that's where you practice, because if you go into that nephew acre that you were losing $300 on, and instead of spending four, you spend 100. Now your maximum loss is $100. So you can totally screw that up. Still didn't hurt as bad as planting the corn in there.
Thank you.
So I guess that's kind of it. And then if the other thing comes back to, do they, maybe they don't want to do it yet. And if they say cover crops don't work, that maybe the reason is like they're afraid of it and they don't want to do it. They're not ready for it. That is a reason that I will take.
Okay.
But I've seen cover crops in central Saskatchewan, so no.
All right. Thank you. That's less of a question, so I'm going to share my screen really quick. So we are ready to go into our breakouts. I hope you see the right screen. So Anne, in a minute, Anne's going to put up our breakout rooms. So if you want to pick which breakout you'd like to go to, which room, and this is again a time to discuss what's your impression. Do you have any ideas, any current research, or anything else you've learned that you kind of had an aha moment. And then you please feel free to talk about any future topics for webinars. We always are looking for good ideas, and we're happy to address those. So with that, if we can, there will be no digital cafe in September. We want to invite you all to our in-person training. It'll be in Arlington, Wisconsin, and we're going to look at conservation finance and some training on how we can do that. And please, if you're interested, go to our Soil Nexus website. The registration is up, and we would love to see you in Wisconsin. So, thank you for coming. And when you are done with your meetings, you're free to go. So please go ahead and choose your rooms. If you can't figure out how to choose your rooms, let us know, and Ann and I can put you in the rooms you'd like to go to. So thank you for coming.
All right, the breakout rooms are now open. You should be able to click on the bottom of your screen to breakout rooms and then choose the room that makes the most sense for you between educator, agency, student, farmer and rancher, and NGO.
Steve, can you see the choices yet? If not, I'm more than happy to put you in one. Just let me know which one you want to go to.
Yeah, it looks like we have a lot of folks in the agency group and the farmer rancher and then NGO. We don't have a ton of folks in the educator room at the moment. It may make sense then to kind of combine groups, so to speak.
Steve, do you want to go to the agency?
Yes. Can you hear
All
me?
right. I'm in a movie there, Steve.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oops, just moved you.
Christina, can you hear me?
I can.
This is Brian Overstreet. I'm on the phone. Can I go to the educator one, I guess?
Yes, we can move you there.
There aren't a
I
ton
didn't
of
know
folks
how.
in the educator room, Brian. There, would you like to
But,
join? Maybe NGO might make sense. It's, other folks
okay,
doing
that's
outreach.
fine.
Or do you want to go in the farmer rancher, Brian?
Farmer Rancher sounds fun.
Okay, I'll move you there.
Okay,
Yeah, so folks, we have three main groups coming together. Agency has lots of folks in it. Farmer and rancher, Lee is in that group if you're interested. And then the NGO group. I think I will join NGO.
Okay.
Christina, if you want to join one.
It doesn't matter which one I can move to. I'll be on till everybody else is off, so I will
Yeah,
move.
there's a ton of folks on agency, so maybe check that one out.
I can go there. Leslie's